Ms. Watkins, you know, so far you seem like the star here. I mean, do you agree that that the electric vehicles are vital to decarbonization? I assume you do, because you said the rise of electric vehicles is vital to decarbonizing road transport.
Yes, we believe that to be
Great.
the case.
Mr. Lawler, I assume you agree with this, because you say energy use in road transport is key. It needs to be dominated by electrification.
Yes, sir. We believe that EVs are significant.
Yes, both of your companies, along with Exxon and Shell, support the American Petroleum Institute. And Mr. Summers, you're here. You're the head of API, and you said, quote, the government efforts to promote electric vehicles would leave everyday drivers high and dry, unfairly burden non-EV drivers, and be costly for taxpayers and consumers. In fact, you've been participating in, quote, state-by-state multi-million-dollar battles to squelch utilities' plans to build charging stations across the country. Ms. Watkins, on this panel with you is Mr. Summers, the head of API. Will you take the opportunity today to tell him that his opposition to electric vehicles is wrong, and that instead of opposing tax credits for electric vehicles, he should support them?
Chairman Khanna, we're a member of the API for a number of reasons. And,
I know, and I respect that. Can you just tell him to stop the electric vehicle advertising? If you say that today, he'll stop. You give him $10 million a year.
we have a number of conversations, of course, ongoing conversations.
Could you just tell him that today? Just tell him, please stop the electric vehicle advertising. It'll help us in Congress. Just tell him to stop.
So I'd like to speak on behalf of Shell. And here at Shell, we very much believe electric vehicles are part of the future, which is why we—
If you would tell him to stop, it would be really helpful. The other, help the president. He's really trying to do what you're asking the president to do. The other thing is, I saw your positive statement today. I was really happy. You said you're for a well-crafted methane fee. You know who's been advertising against the methane fee? API. API, $500,000 in the last 3 months of Facebook advertising alone against the president's agenda on the methane fee that you supported this morning in your great statement. You added it. Your staff crafted a statement and you said, no, we want to have well-crafted methane. Can you please tell API to stop the advertising on the methane fee, against the methane fee?
There are several places where we are not fully aligned with the API. We've been
Please
very
just tell them to stop.
about
Mr. Lawler, anyone, will you tell them to stop? Mr. Lawler, will you tell them to stop the advertising?
Yeah, Mr. Khana, we've been in active communications with API now from the time I joined. And
he's sitting right next to you on the virtual screen. Just say stop. Just speaks plainly. Say stop the advertising against electric vehicles. Stop the advertising against methane.
Well, I speak for BP, Mr. Khana, and we've been supportive of the green climate portions of
Let me ask you this. I assume, Mr. Woods, Mr. Wirth, this is your chance to redeem yourself. Will you tell them to stop, API, if you're not doing the production stuff? Can you tell API to stop that advertising, either of you?
Chairman Khana, we engage in discussions on many policy issues at API. There's a diverse set of members. As Mr. Summers said, over 600 members in this association.
You won't tell them to stop?
Members don't always agree on everything.
Let me ask you this. Total, as you know, they pulled their commitment to API because they said they can't be part of an organization that is engaged against the fight for climate change. Will each of you commit to leaving API if they continue to lobby against electric vehicles? Will any of you commit to leaving them if they're lobbying against electric vehicles? You know what? Here's what's so frustrating, because I really don't think you're as bad as the CEOs of the past. I don't. I think you have tough jobs. You got there. You got a horrible record on stuff. You're figuring out how you don't get into litigation trouble while really trying to tell the truth. It's a tough act. I mean, I don't envy you. And I don't believe you purposely want to be out there spreading climate disinformation. But you're funding these groups, and they're really having an impact. They're spending millions of dollars in Congress to kill electric vehicles, and they're spending millions of dollars against the methane gas. And you could do something here. You could tell them to knock it off for the sake of the planet. You could end it. You could end that lobbying. Would any of you take the opportunity and look at API and say, stop it? Any of you? Will you commit to, could you commit, any of you? Ms. Watkins, come on. I mean, Will you do something here? Would you commit to saying you're not going to fund any group that's going to engage in climate disinformation at least?
Chairman Khanna, what I'll commit to is continuing to be an active member of the API. And we discuss many issues in the API, some of which have to do with climate policy. And I'm really pleased that,
Let me ask this. Would any of you commit to having an independent audit to verify that you're not funding, that none of your funds are going for climate denial? Okay, let me ask this. All of you, raise your hand if you think the climate crisis is one of the most important crises that humanity faces. Just raise your hand. I think all of you do. It's important? Yes, it's right. And you know, I understand you fund things for a lot of reasons. You're the CEOs, you can't track all the details. But if your money is going to organizations that are against the fundamental values that you claim you stand for, don't you think you have some obligation to monitor where the money is going and to make some commitment today to the American people? Right now, your position to the American people, this is not gotcha. This is like actually trying to understand where you said. You're saying we're just going to spend, we'll have conversation. If they want to do false advertising, fine. We'll talk to them behind the scenes. Are any of you today prepared to make any statement saying we're going to take accountability on something so important and stop funding groups that are actively engaged in any form of climate disinformation? I'll give all of you the last word, so my time is up. Any form of commitment in any way, even with a bunch of weasel words, would be great. Please go. Everyone will have a chance to answer.
Chairman Khanna, I'll start by saying that we have been issuing for the last several years trade association reports where we very clearly lay out with a great deal of transparency where we are aligned and where we are somewhat misaligned with trade associations. In fact, we left a trade association because we were so misaligned that we didn't see a way of getting back in alignment. We've been transparent about that, and I will commit to you today that we will continue to drive increased scrutiny on a number of areas around climate policy in that arena.
Mr. Lawler?
Yes, sir. So BP has 7,000 ChargeMaster stations in the UK on their way to 70,000 charging stations by the end of the decade. We're very much for EV use. We advocate that with an API and other organizations, and we'll continue to do that, sir.
Mr. Worth?
Madam Chair's time's
I just, if they can ask, if the two, Mr. Worth and Mr. Woods, could just answer, and I'm not going to ask anything more. They went over a couple minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Worth or Mr. Woods, do you have anything?
Chairman Khanna,
Very quickly.
We engage with a number of organizations, and we don't control and may not always agree with the positions taken or statements made by industry groups and other organizations. We engage in constructive dialogue. What I can tell you is that our position is that climate change is real, the use of fossil fuels contributes to it, and we're committed to helping advance a lower carbon future.
We make our positions very clear going into the trade associations, and then we work with them to try to advance those positions consistent with the broader view of the membership that each of the organizations serves. And I would point out the API has evolved the climate position and supports carbon tax along with a number of other constructive climate policies.
Okay, you back.
Thank you.
The gentleman yields back, and I now recognize for an equivalent